son is racing.
Welcome, race fans, to a special Halloween edition of the Rubbin' is Racing Daily Fantasy NASCAR show.
Can you dig it?
This week we have all your action for the first Data 500 from Martinsville Speedway. Stages will be at laps 130, laps 260, and then we'll race all the way to the finish at lap 500.
Interesting fact here is in the last 13 races at Martinsville, Chevy has won 10 of those 13 races. The last time a different manufacturer won the race, it was a Toyota back in 2010 when Denny Hambone Hamlin won his third consecutive race. For your fantasy lineups this week, you're going to have to want to focus on the guys that are going to lead the laps and get the fastest laps, as we got 500 laps this weekend.
Thank you, Leonardo. Oh, man. Before we get into
this, look at you the whole show this way, man.
Right. Like, dude, Orko, like, this costume's getting hot, though. I will let you know. I don't know how long I'm going to be able to tolerate this.
You can do it. You can do it. Do it for the fans.
All right. There will be morning showers, but we should have plenty of time to get the track dry before we go racing Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern on NBC Sports Network. And before we get into the picks, kids, it's official. Bubba Wallace has a ride and will be a rookie next season in the Richards Petty Motorsports number 43. I'm excited. I mean, can you tell from the look on my face? I am excited.
Dude, I'm actually excited too. It's pretty freaking awesome. I mean, for him to actually get the full-time ride and he obviously showed it this year. He's got the ability. And I don't know if you saw the picture this week, but all those guys and the next drivers, I mean, and he was the last one to get in on a full-time Cup ride. But congratulations to him, and here's hoping that they find a sponsor as well.
Right, that'll be awesome. All right, Liehr, we're in Halloween costumes. We're feeling ridiculous. It's time to burn some rubber, baby. You gonna do it for us?
Ooh, burning rubber, baby, Cowabunga style at Martinsville.
I just have to point out, dude, I love that you have Leonardo's, like, face mask, but you're carrying Raphael's size.
That's because these belong to my son.
Ah, okay.
And I didn't want to pay the extra buckaroos to get the
sword?
The sword from, it's kind of a waste of money, so.
All right, Liehr.
But at least I bucked up for the costume. I mean, you got to do it for the kid, right?
Who's your first pick to burn some rubber?
Well, this is just awkward, besides what we're wearing this evening. But most shows we have the privilege of knowing who's going to start where when they start the race. Obviously, this week it's a little different. We just don't have that pleasure as qualifying is just a few hours before the race. I could have easily gone with one of the top-end drivers this week, but this week I chose to go with a team and a driver that's a little bit below the radar and has something to prove this week. And at a track where he's performed pretty well, he's obviously been in a little bit better than average equipment, but I'm talking about Clint Boyer in the 14 Stewart Haas team. Boyer's had a disappointing season this year, to say the least, coming into great equipment at Stewart Haas. Martinsville is one of the tracks that he's done pretty well on, and this team is either going to look forward to wrapping up the season of 2017 or have a very strong showing as Boyer has a streak of real terrible finishes of 19th or higher in the last 7 out of his 10 races, man, which is pretty horrible. For a driver, those performances, it would indicate that he is definitely overpriced this week at $8,800, but that has definitely been where he's been hovering around all year. Boyer's got 23 starts here at Martinsville, 0 wins, 4 top 5s, and 13 top 10s. He has an average start of 16.8 and an average finish of 14.5, which is pretty good. He's got good, race here in the spring. He started 8th and finished 7th. He's got a great stretch run from 2012 to 2014 with Michael Waltrip Racing, where he finished every single race in the top 10. He'll go out there and, not be a monster lap leader in this race. No, that's not going to happen. Will he have the most fantasy points this weekend? Probably not. He will definitely be a must-owned driver in your lineups this weekend. And my answer to that is yes, because I think he's definitely going to have, depending on where he qualifies and where he practices at tomorrow, but I definitely think he's got a chance to get a top 5 this weekend, which he hasn't done in quite some time.
I actually like the Boyer play. I think it's the ultimate trick-or-treat sort of play, right? He's that kind of guy at 8,800 that a lot of people aren't going to be looking at this week. As long as he qualifies low enough to make it worth your while, I have no problem with you rostering Clint Boyer this week. Now, the guy I'm thinking about rostering for Burning Rubber is... That's right, kids. David S. Pumpkins. No. I'm just joking. We're going to go with Rowdy at 11K. He has 4 top 5s in his last 4 races, including a win, and has led 629 laps here in those 4 races. In his history here, finishes in the top 5 half the time he races here. The other bonus pick I'm going to give you here, because it's Halloween and I feel like giving you a little bit of extra candy this week, is Brad Keselowski at 9,600. Now, he has 4 top 5s and a win in his last 5 races here, and he historically finishes in the top 5 a third of the time and finishes in the top 10 60% of the time he races here at Martinsville. Those are your guys that I look to actually have a, wow, as my costume starts falling apart. Those are the guys I look to have a dominating performance and be your lap leaders this week. I would assume that they'll be fast on the track. Keep your eyes peeled for those plays. Liehr, do you have anything to add to Rowdy and Kez?
It worked 60%, 100% of the time, right?
Exactly.
No, dude, I love the Rowdy play this weekend. I mean, God, last week that guy just dominated a lot of the Kansas race. And, you know, towards the end, got pushed back there. But, you know, this team's definitely searching for a win. They need to get one under their belt. You know, they want to wrap it up as soon as they can to move on to the next round of the playoffs. And this is definitely an opportunity, especially if you know, Rowdy starts on the pole. Look out. I mean, this guy could stay up front majority of the day. He could come out like he did in 2016 in the spring, and, you know, he led 352 of 500 laps. I mean, that's crazy talk. And even this past spring, he led 274. So, I mean, just if he's up front, and I think that team is probably going to start in the top 5, you definitely got to have some Rowdy this weekend. And as far as Keselowski, this is by far probably his best track. That he's got the opportunity to also get to the next, you know, stage of the playoffs, because the next races is not, as far as Texas, this is definitely his best chance or his best opportunity to have a chance to move on. And, you know, I'm assuming that Keselowski and those guys are also going to probably start at least in the top 10, but I wouldn't be surprised if they also start in the top 5. Again, you're going to be running into some, you know, salary issues when you start talking about rostering you know, Kyle Busch and maybe possibly a Keselowski. Johnson's another guy here that you got to be cognizant of. He's got 9 wins here. That's a team that's been struggling all season, and they definitely have to have a great performance to continue on. He was so freaking lucky to, you know, make it to this round of the playoffs. So I think they're going to take that for all it's worth and keep going. So, you know, it's just one of those things where I think I'm going to have a lot more love for Rowdy this weekend, but I'm definitely not going to be sleeping on Keselowski or Johnson either.
Yeah, it's hilarious to me that we're talking about the winningest driver of all time in championships, well, tied for it, going to be before it's all said and done, as squeaking by into this round of the championships. That's just hilarious to me in and of itself. But yeah, Jimmy's also a play that I'm looking at this weekend. As long as that car looks like it can run. You know, they've just been struggling, as you said. All right, Liehr, anybody else in the burning rubber phase, anybody like Harvick or Truex you think can lead laps this week? Or do you pretty much locking in on Rowdy and Kez?
I mean, when it comes to Martin Truex, I mean, there's no other, obviously, what a great win for that team last weekend at Kansas. Came through some large adversity between having to take the penalty for, you know, going below the line on the white line, and then also having the issue with the tire and having to come back in. they also had the death of the guy that is on their team, and just so much adversity last week, and they came back and prevailed, and it was just unbelievable to see that happen. But this is one of those tracks where Truex definitely is not one of his strong suits here at Martinsville. I mean, he's raced here 23 times. He doesn't have a win. He's only got 2 top 5s out of those 23 starts and 7 top 10s. So this is probably going to be a track where I'm not going to be looking too much into Truex unless tomorrow that team can show the speed, but also see where he qualifies as well. But the one benefit, though, is from Kansas that we haven't really talked about is the pit boxes that they got, because it's all based off of where they qualified this past weekend at Kansas. So he's going to have the #1 pit stall. So that's going to be a huge benefit to that team in Sunday's race. So if it comes to any other guys, there at Martinsville, I mean, I definitely like Harvick. He was a little bit disappointing last week at Kansas, but, another guy that you definitely have to be cognizant of is Denny Hamlin. He's got 5 wins here. This is his home track. He's from Virginia, so he always loves racing here. He's got 5 wins, which is second active compared to Jimmy Johnson, and he's led a ton of laps here, so I would always be cognizant of Denny Hamlin as well.
I'm with you. Those are the guys I'm looking at this weekend to be dominators. Everybody else is a place differential play, in my opinion. It's not hard in NASCAR this season to determine who's going to have it and who won't as far as dominators go. The real interesting part for me is that you might get Truex this weekend at his lowest possible own percentage, and that's crazy considering a guy that has just dominated the season so far. But as you said, Martinsville is not one of his best tracks. But it would be an interesting position for you to leverage some ownership there and take a stab if that's the route you decided you wanted to go. All right, Liehr, who are we going to use to save some money this week?
Well, as far as my value play this week, he's coming off one of his best performances of his career besides his lucky win at Pocono. And this person would be obviously Chris Buescher in the 37 JTG Doherty team. He finished 6th this past weekend at Kansas with a very strong run and looks to keep that momentum going into Martinsville. I'm going to start calling him C-Bush, but C-Bush has raced here 4 times. He's got an average start of 33.2 and an average finish of 23.8. So obviously some great place differential there on his averages. And all of his races here, he's had positive place differential with a fantastic race here this last spring where he started 33rd and finished 11th. His cost this week is really doable at $6,800. The highest C-Bush has qualified here is 29th. So, if the trend continues and he continues on what he's been doing over the 4 races that he's done here, he's probably going to have a pretty poor qualifying position. And, like I said, the highest that he's ever qualified is 29th. So this team has definitely been finishing in the late teens as of late. And I look for this team to continue that and go into Martinsville with another strong finish. And I look for it to happen again. So I'm definitely going to have some pretty good exposure to Chris Buescher. If he happens to overqualify, and what I mean by overqualify, that means maybe in the top 15. Yeah, I'll probably halter my love for him. But if he's anywhere, and people might think I'm crazy, but if he starts 20th or higher, I'm going to start him, man.
Fair enough, dude. I don't think that I have a problem with you playing him if he starts 20th or higher. The problem I have is if you start him when he's teens or higher, and that you're just ixnaying all your ability to get place differential for Chris Buescher. I love that car, and I think what he's been doing in it is amazing things. But at the same time, I'm not going to play him if he's qualified in the teens at all. And to be honest, I want him to qualify low 20s, if not in the 30s, to maximize the place differential goodness that is Chris Buescher. For my value plays, guys, I had to harness the power of Grayskull, and I decided to give you as a value Hermie Sadler at 4,400. That's right, kiddies. I said Hermie. I also am going to double down and give you Carl Weatherman at 4,300. Actually, the guy's name's Kyle, but it sounds way cooler with Carl. This week's entries by Tommy Baldwin Racing and Rick Ware Racing could actually do something. And to be honest, with us having absolutely no information except track history, all these value guys are pretty much all a crapshoot. I just wanted to give those guys a shout out and compliment an awesome name like Hermie. You don't see Hermie many times nowadays, and I wanted to give a shout out to the guy. Plus, they're super cheap, man. They allow you to super stack a lineup this week. It's a really interesting play that carries with it a lot of inherent risk, but we've seen multiple times that Rick Ware car and the Tommy Baldwin car has actually outperformed the likes of BK Racing and some of the other value teams that are out there. So take a look at their practice times and where they qualify, and think about rolling the dice on Hermie and Mr. Weatherman. Liehr?
Definitely love the Hermie reference, man. And, it's been a long time since we've seen that guy in the Cup Series. And obviously the Sadler brothers are pretty well known within the NASCAR community. So I wish him, obviously, nothing but the best of luck this weekend. Couldn't tell you a darn thing about this Weatherman guy, but if I had the choice of anything, I would definitely go. It obviously depends on how practice goes tomorrow and then also qualifying. But, dude, Greg Galding is only $200 more than Hermie Sadler, who obviously doesn't race on a consistent basis. So if you're looking for somebody for value and somebody that's going to potentially give you some great place differential for very minimal salary, that would definitely be Greg Galding in my book. He's only $4,600 this weekend, and the guy's finished really well in the last 2 weeks, especially at the Talladega at the Alabama 500, where he started 39th and finished 9th. But even last week at Kansas, he started 33rd and finished 28th. So, I mean, you're talking about a guy that, has consistently gotten you, on average over 30 points the last 2 weeks. So for a guy that only costs $4,600, that's a good value in my play.
Oh, I want to be clear. Galding may be the better play, but at least you get to play and root for a guy named Hermie. That's all I'm saying. Like, how many times do you get a chance to do that? That's why I'm advocating him as my value play. That's one of my value plays. All right, Liehr, anybody else that you're looking to save money on this week? Anybody you think's mispriced?
Good stuff this week, buddy. I also like, Cole Witt, $5,100. He's always a good play. But I'm definitely liking some David Reagan this weekend. He's $5,700. And, as far as anybody down in that lower tier area and pump plays, David Reagan's always a good play, guy that's just, got a lot of history within the Cup Series, but, can always come to these tracks with experience, and you're not having to spend a ton of money to get the big boys on your team. So definitely love me some David Reagan this weekend. But as far as any mispriced drivers, really there hasn't been much change for any of the drivers that we've got here. Most of them are all about what they've been pretty much all season. The only one that really sticks out in my mind that basically is somebody that, you can always possibly look at here at Martinsville, and that would be Danica Patrick. She's definitely, depending on where she qualifies, but she's one of those drivers that you always got to be cognizant of, especially because she's always hovering around that $6,200, $6,100 price point. But she's definitely got some decent history here. She's got 9 races, average start of 25.1 and an average finish of 22.78. So if she meets Poppa's paradigm and starts 24th or higher, I'm going to be on Danica Patrick this weekend for sure.
Yeah, I think the usual suspects are somebody that you need to keep an eye out for. The Baines, the Stenhouses, basically all the RCR cars, and Newman, Menard. Make sure they don't overqualify, because you don't want to roster them when they overqualify. But when they tank qualifying, which they normally do, they're guys that you want to roster and look to, and they're always cheap. Then you have, with those guys, the Allmendinger and Almirola play. They're always a crapshoot as well. This is all going to depend on qualifying, kids, and without us having that information to give to you, you're just going to have to make those adjustments. And as always, Liehr and I will try to do our best and give you any updates and answer any questions you have on the YouTube page. So just feel free to contact us there.
And one other guy that I definitely would like to mention is Austin Dillon. He's $7,500 this week, but Austin Dillon, surprisingly enough, has got some really, really good history here at Martinsville. He's got an average start of 26.6 and an average finish of 16, only in 7 races, and he's got 2 top 5s and 2 top 10s. So, I mean, some good stuff there from Austin Dillon. So be on the lookout for what he does this weekend as well to possibly plug him into your lineups as well.
Nice heads up on the AD play. Always love rolling a little bit of Maverick. All right, kids, now it's the time for the segment where we send somebody to the garage. Just going to the garage. That means we like to talk trash. Maybe it's a driver. Maybe it's a team. Maybe it's DraftKings. Maybe it's NASCAR itself. Or maybe something a little bit different for Halloween, as you'll see coming up with mine. Liehr, let's see. Who are you sending to the garage this week, buddy?
Well, I'll be sticking with the normal stuff like I always do, and that's the drivers that we got here. But it's obviously hard to talk about any driver because we have no freaking clue where anybody's going to be starting at. But this is all strictly just based on history, and it really pains me to say this, as I love this driver and this team, at least till the end of this season. But I'm going to be going with the number 95 Levine family racing car of Michael McDowell. McDowell's just had a horrible history here at Martinsville, which is surprising as he is a pretty good road course racer. And there's been a lot of shift, and obviously there's going to be a lot of shifting this weekend at Martinsville, which, should play into his strengths. But McDowell's raced here 13 times. He's got an average start of 31.8 and an average finish of 33.4. Ouch. Although he's actually finished the last 3 races here, were pretty decent of 24th, 18th, and 26th this past spring. He also started 26th this past spring. But McDowell's cost is $5,800. If I had to choose someone, since we don't know where they're going to start at the field, but McDowell obviously has got some of the worst active history here at Martinsville. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to send my boy in the number 95 team to the garage this weekend.
The person I'm sending to the garage this week is... I had to do it again. Actually, I'm doing something a little bit special. Tonight, before we film, I was watching the Michael Jackson Halloween special, and that's what I'm sending to the garage. That show was awful. I have no idea what Michael Jackson's music, other than the Thriller album, has to do with Halloween, what it had to do with any sort of special. I'm still confused by the storyline. The characters were all right, I guess. But the moral of the story was for kids to not conform, which is cool and all. But they were trying to teach them to not conform to become DJs and professional dancers. And I just figured while we're at the bad career choices, why not go professional DFS player in the mix, right? No, guys, it was an awful special, and hopefully you didn't waste your time watching it. All right, with that said, I think that wraps up another episode of the Rubbin' His Racing Daily Fantasy NASCAR Show. Look, you can love Michael Jackson. That was just, that was an abomination to the man and his music. Anywho, Liehr, do you have anything you want to say before we head out of here?
Yeah, I always appreciate you guys watching the show. Definitely keep up on the practices tomorrow at Martinsville. And then make sure you keep in tune with Sunday's action, because obviously they're going to be qualifying a few hours just before the start time. So that is going to be significant and huge to your lineups this week, because you're going to have to get on there with not much time left and make sure that you got all your lineups set up correctly. So you may have to go in and obviously reserve all your entries, put in some fake lineups, and then go back in and change them all. So it's going to be hustle and bustle on Sunday, my friend. And then also if you're a fantasy football player too, I mean, holy moly, what a Sunday.
Yeah, it's going to be an action-packed Sunday, and hopefully we will be able to answer as much information and as many questions as you guys have. With that said, remember to like, share, subscribe, and let's win some money this week in NASCAR and in football, those of us that play both sports. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed. The costumes will be out of them next week, as I am sweating profusely. This thing's hot. This thing's hot. Have a good one, guys. Later.
Have a great weekend, everybody. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. Be safe, kids. Don't take candy from strangers.
They did the mash. They did the monster mash. The monster mash.
It was a great job
They
smash.
did the mash. It caught on in a flash. They did the mash.
It is the monster mash.